Hey everyone, this is FaZe and welcome to my channel. If you've been subscribed to my channel for a while, then you probably know how big of a fan I am of the iPad. I use the iPad Pro as my main productivity tool. It has replaced my MacBook even, and I've done a whole video talking about how the iPad Pro, the new M4 one, has replaced my MacBook Pro. However, it's not just the iPad Pro that I really love. It's also the iPad mini because of its small display and portability factor, and the iPad Air, which I have called it to be the best iPad for most people. However, with the iPad mini and the iPad Air, I've always said one thing all the time. They're great devices, but they lack when it comes to the overall display quality. Now, don't take me wrong, the display is not bad if you look at the iPad mini and the iPad Air. But if you use the latest iPhones and the new M4 iPad Pro, those displays are absolutely beautiful. And then when you go back to using an iPad or an iPad mini after using an iPhone or an iPad Pro, they kind of look a little dated, like they're not as saturated or crisp as the OLED displays on the iPad Pro. But that is all going to change because rumor has it that Apple is going to bring the OLED display to both the iPad mini and the iPad Air. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That is a pro feature, right? Why is Apple going to bring the OLED display that it just introduced on the M4 iPad Pro and bring it to an iPad mini and an iPad Air? Well, here's the thing. Apple has always trickled down features that were once on the Pro devices to the more mainstream devices. For example, the iPhone X, it introduced an OLED display for the very first time, and all the other Pro iPhones had an OLED display after that, right? But it wasn't until the iPhone 12 series when a non-Pro device finally got an OLED display. Now, was it as great as the Pro series? No, it wasn't as great in terms of brightness. It also didn't get ProMotion, but it was still an OLED display and it was still a non-Pro device. So OLED doesn't always necessarily mean that it's for a Pro device because, like I said, in the current market of iPhones, all iPhones right now have an OLED display. So why can't it be the same for the iPads? And here's another thing that this new report from 9to5Mac states. It states that it will have an OLED display, but it won't be exactly like the OLED display that you've seen on an M4 iPad Pro. You see, an M4 iPad Pro has the tandem OLED display, which is basically two panels stacked together, which gives you the best colors and the best overall brightness. It gives you over 1600 nits of overall brightness, which is absolutely amazing when you look at HDR content. So Apple is not going to bring that same tandem OLED technology to the new iPad mini or the iPad Air, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because a lot of people who use the mini and the Air, they don't necessarily complain too much about the brightness. And of course, when you start using the M4 iPad Pro and you get so used to it, then yes, the mini and the iPad Air do look a little, not so bright. But once again, that is about to change. You are going to get a better display. And what that means is you get richer blacks, better colors, better saturation, more vibrancy. The text appears crisp and overall looks much nicer. And if you've used the mini and the Air, then you probably know what I'm talking about. They're not bad displays, but they do seem very dated. Overall, I'm super excited that Apple is finally bringing OLED to the iPad Air and the iPad mini. I think it's going to take these devices next level. So here's the thing, though it's bringing OLED, it's not going to be tandem OLED, and Apple is still reserving 120 Hz ProMotion display on the Pro devices. That's still going to be a Pro feature, not something that's going to be coming into the iPad Air or the iPad mini. So if ProMotion was what you really wanted to see, I'm sorry, you're kind of out of luck, that's not coming. Also, the same report states that it's going to be 2026 when you're going to see the new iPad Air and the iPad mini with the OLED display. And that makes sense because the new iPad Air literally just launched a few months ago, and I don't anticipate Apple updating that next year. Usually Apple waits every few years to upgrade their iPad models. It's not like the iPhones where they upgrade it every single year. And because they just announced the new iPad Air, 2026 makes sense. Now, having said that though, a new 7th generation iPad mini is still in the works and it's still slated to release later this year. And once again, it's going to just be a small spec update. So if you're really holding out for an all new iPad mini with a ton of new great updates, this new 7th generation may not be the one. And to be very honest, it's probably worth waiting for the 2026 model with the OLED display because trust me, OLED makes a difference, not just in terms of colors and vibrancy, but also on battery life. But at the end of the day, I am super excited because I love the iPad Air, I love the iPad mini, and the one big issue I've always had with them is the overall display quality. And I think it's about time that Apple finally brings an OLED display to both of these devices. And I'm super excited. I hope you are too. But at the end of the day, I want to know your thoughts. Do you think this is a good move by Apple? Or do you want to see Apple do more when it comes to the Air and the Mini's display? Whatever your thoughts are, whatever your questions are, leave them down in the comment section below. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so, and I'll see you next time.